So let's make sure we hear that.
Blaming the victim doesn't really work.
Okay.
I think he pointed out something very important, and that is that people have much more control over 401ks today than the first time I participated in a 401k. I was basically investing in a company, and today we have far more choices, and I do believe it comes down to personal accountability and the choices we make. And if we elect risky options, then we have risky returns. My risk options obviously put me in a position where I'm worth 20% of what I was 2.5 years ago or 2 years ago.
How many of you? Sorry,
From the standpoint of accountability, I think it comes down to the individual person, and a 401k obviously has tremendous advantage.
How many of you think that you all are responsible for how much your portfolios went down? Yeah, for the losses in your portfolios. How many of you hold yourselves responsible? 1, 2, 3.5. Patty's unsure whether she's holding herself responsible. Why? So this guy's just totally off base. David.
Well, I think it's hypocritical to say that it's, this is a free choice economy when you first of all essentially privatize the retirement system by getting rid of guaranteed pensions and forcing people into 401ks, and then are spending billions of dollars trying to convince people that they can beat the market by investing smartly. I mean, when the companies that are doing this are making money hand over fist by administering the 401ks and getting paid commission on the trades, and then you blame the investor for losing money. I mean, come on.
Robert.
The man isn't going to win any popularity contests, that's for sure, but I'm afraid that he speaks the truth. I mean, there are certain basic rules about doing your own investment, and you're supposed to adjust your balance of adjustments the closer you get to retirement. If you're 100% in equities, close to getting retirement, you're, what can I say?
Okay, so we've got a couple of people who believe that this is about purely personal responsibility. Others of you are going to hold somebody else at least partially responsible for this. I want to change things up now a little bit, and I want to show some messages that have been doctored to protect the innocent or the guilty, depending on how you look at it, but that are very much messages that come out of the industry today rather than coming from the media. So as I told you, instead of coming from a TV show, somebody reading off a teleprompter, we're not focused on the messenger as much as we are the message. Everyone could go back to 50 for me, please.
This has been a particularly hard time for people who are close to retirement. For many people, the visions of what that retirement was going to be like, or even more importantly, when it was going to start, have changed. And now it's necessary to rethink some things. You may be worried specifically about that moment in time when you retire, which is certainly understandable. At the same time, you need to remember you're not going to use all of your money the day you retire. You're going to be needing it for what's hopefully going to be a very long retirement, and you want to make sure you can enjoy all of it. So not only do you need money for the first year you retire, but you're going to need money to spend in the 5th year and the 10th year, and hopefully out to the 30th year. So you still need stocks in your portfolio to make sure you've got that growth potential to give you the income that you're going to need 10, 20, 30 years into retirement. Not just about what's happening that first year.
Okay, so you like that message. What is it about that message that stands out in a positive way? What do we like? Common sense. What else? I'm sorry? It's hopeful. Why does that make it a good message? I thought you wanted straight talk.
Well, you want straight talk, but you also want to have some hope, too, to keep you
Okay.
going.
What else? You had a positive reaction to it. Any sense of why? What it was? Tom?
It's kind of hard not to focus on a messenger, and I try to focus on the message, but it's an unknown person up there. I just felt he a little more sincere versus the other folks we saw. So it's difficult not to focus on who's presented the message. But
Okay.
that's what I saw. So
Edward?
The beginning of the message and all throughout it, it seemed to at least try to take into account my fears, my worries, rather than just some pundit's, explanation of the market. So at least it had our concerns and our fears and our feelings embedded into it as to how it passed on the advice.
Great. Brian and then Fred.
Well, I liked what he had to say, because I think people have this notion that when you retire, you're going to take all your risky investments, cash them out, put them into a bank account, and then live off that money plus the interest that money will earn in a bank account of some type. And that's not going to happen. That's the surest way to lose money, because you'll slowly lose money over time. And that's the advice he's giving. Unfortunately, we're tied into this volatility is good and no risk, no reward. And that's what he's saying, is that you're going to need to take some risks even in retirement to maintain the rewards.
Great. Fred.
I thought it was a bit of a non sequitur. His first advice I thought was very sound, but then he came to the conclusion, therefore you should buy stock. Well, if he was a real estate salesman, he would say, therefore you should buy real estate. There wasn't any meat on the bone there. He just threw it out and said, therefore this is what you should do. So for me, it didn't have a great deal of credibility.
Okay, but there's a question, Brian, that you raised, and that is that the question of what happens in retirement. When you get to retirement, do you start focusing on how you're going to spend the money that you have, or are you still focused on building the portfolio so that you have money to spend? Is there a point at which you shift from building your portfolio to spending your portfolio? How many of you would say that there's a moment? The day I retire, I start focusing on spending instead of building? No. How many of you would say that you never stop focusing on building your retirement? Okay, so no matter what, you're not retired yet, you're retired, you're still building your portfolios or rebuilding your portfolios, as the case may be. There's no line in the sand. You haven't decided that you've got what you've got and you're just going to start spending it. Marlene.
I've been retired 10 years, and I've been fortunate in that I haven't had to take any money out of my retirement. I don't look at that to live on. So I plan, hopefully, that the money that I did lose will come back in time. But as I said, I don't know how long it's going to take.
Great. Everybody back to 50. I got a couple more clips I want to get through.
If you look at it logically, the markets have already had their major drop. Now there's a greater chance that they'll recover than drop further. Even when there have been full-blown recessions in the past, we have bounced back and posted even greater gains than we thought were possible. That's why the time to buy equities is now, while the market is down and before it starts to jump up again. And even though there's no such thing as a totally risk-free investment, equities have a history of performance that we know and can count on.
Okay, by a show of hands, who didn't like that message? Did not like that message. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who liked that message? A little more than half of you, but the dials were a little bit negative. So who had a strongly negative reaction to that message? Anybody? Let me get a couple quick responses. Brian, why?
I understand his message, but I think we live in a world like we've never seen before. And I don't think you can look back in time and say statistically this is what the market has done and it will continue to do. I mean, think about the type of world we live in. All it would take is one terrorist attack on the United States that would plunge us into chaos. It would Iran dropping a bomb on Israel. All these things are very real possibilities that perhaps weren't possibilities before that could throw things into turmoil. So I think he's being a little too upbeat about investing and things are guaranteed to get better if we look at past trends. Past trends are no indication of exactly what the future will do.
Okay, Margaret.
In addition to which, I think I've seen a couple of studies recently that said, no, equities have not beat every other investment over the past 50 or 60 years. So right away, I don't believe them.
And who liked that message?